How's it going, everybody? It's Pilot Flame, and we are back with another FPL stream. It is game week 17 deadline. Happy New Year to you all as well. Hopefully 2021 we can start off on the right foot with some FPL points and moving up the ranks. That would be nice. Happy New Year to you as well, Hazard. I got the new haircut. Had to take it all off. It was getting too long. Took that off, took the beard, took the mustache, took most of it off. Yeah, so hopefully we can get off to the right foot. But let's get right into it because we got a lot to talk about. So there's the team up on the screen. I finally could put the little arrow up to see if it was a green or a red arrow. Which is quite nice. So I have the green arrow, and then I can put the red arrow up as I want, like that, if I wanted to. So got it all sorted to make it a little bit easier to see if I went up or down in rank this week. But this week from game week 16, we went up by 400k places, which was nice. The team that you see on the screen, did quite well. Haven't made any transfers yet. Team news didn't help. Like the press conferences and stuff didn't help as much. And it's causing a bit of a problem. Causing a big problem. And that's because there are people that are going up in price, people are going down in price. And I'm quite close on funds, basically, for certain players. And I don't know whether to basically pull the trigger now. Or basically kind of hold on. Because I'm second guessing potentially doing the... using the free hit, basically, because I'm thinking if the teams that are supposed to go to the FA Cup, like quarterfinals and later stages and that sort of stuff, get there, then we're gonna have a week where it's just gonna be just absolutely dead players. So it's just gonna be like, Crystal Palaces, the West Broms, the Fulhams, these sorts of games, and having to transfer those players in or potentially hits just doesn't feel good. So I'm trying to think of a way potentially to circumvent having to use the free hit in 18 while also staying flexible in this game week. Now that may require hits, and we'll discuss that later on. But right now, for the foreseeable future, at the start of this game week, this is what the team's kind of looking like. Potentially, there is a chance that the Fulham game is less likely to. Fulham versus Burnley is less likely to go through, which would mean that I wouldn't have Pope, Taylor, or Chris Wood. But the one nice thing is that I have Johnston, who would come in versus Arsenal. Should be, fairly low scoring, I think, for that game. Souček would come in for Chris Wood, and Cancelo or Kufal would come in for Taylor. So I have a bit of coverage there in terms of like players that could get rotated out if that game were to not go through. Which is why I'm still kind of half waiting on if there's any late news, which is probably not going to happen, to figure out what the issue is. But let's actually take a look at some of the fixtures here. I like the little bits and bobs that they put here. So like Richarlison, he's back for Everton. Antonio's probably going to see another bench appearance for West Ham. And he has the early kickoff against Richarlison. United should probably see a pretty much a similar-ish team. Same with Aston Villa. The problem is that all the teams that we want to know about are the teams that play on like Sunday or later. So, Burnley versus Fulham, are they going to play? Which Jamie have already rested, or is he actually fully fit? Chelsea versus City, is that game going to still potentially go on, or is City's lineup, too ridden with positive cases for them to, not go ahead with that one? So, do you think City can keep a clean sheet with Ederson and Walker out? Yeah, they should be able to, I would think. Ederson's not that good of a shot stopper per se, and can make mistakes, so, I mean, like, he's a decent shot stopper, but I mean, they're versus Chelsea. They're like, I wouldn't be betting on a clean sheet in this game anyway. But the players that are apparently self-isolating at the moment that we know of are Ederson, Kyle Walker, Gabriel Jesus. Now, Pep in his press conference said he had 2, and then he had 3 more. So those 2 was Walker and Jesus initially. Then he said 3 more. Now, 2 of those have been confirmed. One of them's Ederson, based on his post on social media, as well as I can't remember his name. Let me go to the transfer screen. But it's not like a first team player. I think he plays it's Doyle or Delap. It's one of those ones. One of the youngsters that doesn't really play, typically. So yeah, it's not anyone serious on that front. But when Pep also said that when you look at the team sheet, there's going to be 3 noticeable absentees. So we're guessing Walker, Ederson, Jesus. So I brought in Diaz on impulse a couple of days back. Diaz should be fine, I think. There hasn't been any mention of him. I think Cancelo's fine too, apparently. But if I had to guess, so apparently it's not Cancelo. There's still rumors it could be Ferran Torres, but I think the main ones that Pep's mentioning is Kyle Walker, Gabriel Jesus, and Ederson. Those are the 3 that are like, he's probably saying the main absentees. One of the other ones is a fringe player / someone who just fills off the bench basically and doesn't ever play. It's Delap or I can't remember the name of the player, but it is one of the City players that doesn't basically get a look in. And then the last one is up for debate. People are thinking it's Cancelo. People are thinking it's Torres. People are thinking it's somebody. But if I had to guess, the 3 main players that he's talking about, that he says you'll see absent from the team sheet if the game goes ahead, is Ederson, because he plays every game. Walker, who's one of their senior players. And Jesus, who's been basically starting every game since Aguero's been out. So I think those are the 3 main ones you have to look at. So I think Cancelo, Diaz, De Bruyne, these sorts of key players that they have are probably okay. But it's guesswork, right? So it is guesswork, which is makes things a lot more difficult for ourselves. So but yeah. And that's kind of the issue, is that we could get to Sunday, you think, oh yeah, your team's fine, and then all of a sudden Chelsea versus Man City's called off, Burnley versus Fulham is called off. Now, if we look at my team, that's 4 players right off the bat. For some teams, it could be even more. So I would have Pope would come out, Johnston would go in, Taylor would come out if he did play, and Kufal would have to play because Cancelo would be out too. Chris Wood will come on, Suchek will come in. So that means I'm already going into that without a bench already. So that assumes that Justin, Robertson, Rafinha, Mane, Salah, Fernandez, Rodrigo, Bamford all play. Some of them might get rested. We don't know. With Leeds and United, it's pretty straightforward that Rafinha, Rodrigo, Bamford are probably going to play. Salah, Mane are probably going to play or see minutes at least. Robertson might get rested, but will probably see minutes at some point. But, I mean, he hasn't been rested this whole season, so, and it's super important for him, and why would you rest him considering how good he's been? But in terms of coverage for this week, I'm okay for players, even if Chelsea versus Man City and Fulham versus Burnley were to get called off. Hey, OS, how's it going? I'm looking at fielding 7 players in Game Week 18 with double Game Week 19, 15 double Game Week players. How are you planning for the next couple of fixtures? I'm thinking about doing something similar-ish. Yeah, I'm thinking about doing something similar-ish. I'm just going to go through the fixtures real quick. I might not even be bench boosting in 19 as well, so that may be something that's still a bit, up in the air. And I'll show you why in a bit. But let's just run through the fixtures really quickly. So Spurs versus Leeds, a game I'm definitely worried about. I think Spurs can do some damage. I just have to root for Leeds because I have 3 Leeds players. So I'm going to be a Leeds fan that day. Hurts to say being a United fan, but we're going to go for Leeds that day. Crystal Palace versus Sheffield United. Nobody really cares, apart from people wanting to potentially get Mitchell off their bench. Brighton versus Wolves. Again, no real players that are going to be prevalent in that game. Maybe Danny Welbeck for some people, but probably not much. West Brom versus Arsenal could be something that we could potentially look at, with Rob Holding as someone who's a very cheap defender. Also plays in the blank game week. Something to note. Burnley versus Fulham. I expect a Burnley win there if the game goes through. Leicester, I expect them to beat Newcastle. Jamie Vardy should be fit for that game, but you never know. Chelsea versus Man City could be a close contest. Could be a 0-0. That'd be nice for the other teams in the league like Liverpool and United and Leicester and Spurs. They would happily take those teams dropping 2 points each. And then Southampton could be of a tricky fixture, a banana peel for Liverpool. They've drawn their last two to West Brom and to Newcastle, which is points they didn't expect to drop, and could be quite tricky. So overall, some interesting fixtures, and it's just a matter of I think the fixtures are going to go through. I think Fulham and Burnley are more so in doubt. If I had to put a percentage on it, I would say Chelsea versus City is probably like a 80 to 85% chance. Fulham and Burnley is probably 60-40 if I had to guess. So we'll see. Hey, pilots, Son, Bruno, or Salah for captaincy. I think if you have all three of those, I would say Son first, then Bruno, then Salah. In that order. And I would definitely, going forward, if you have Son and Kane this week, captain one of them, and then vice captain somebody in a different game. Probably Bruno, because the reason I think Bruno's fine is because United haven't played anyone that has problems with people self-isolating. Like Wolves didn't have, like they had a couple of players, but they were more or less fine. And I think Bruno's gonna definitely play. So, and we would have heard about a cancellation of that fixture if it were to be cancelled by now. So, are Spurs on form though? No, they're not. But Leeds are a team that are quite open at the back. But again, the last time Leeds went to a team and they decided, let's just see if we can go at them in their style, they conceded 6 goals to United. And leading into that, I don't think United were in the best of form. I mean, we had to scrape back versus Southampton, scrape back versus West Ham, 0-0, boring 0-0 with City. Had to, hang on to a victory versus Sheffield United, and then we beat Leeds. So, form doesn't necessarily, it attributes to some things, but again, it's form versus fixture here. In a sense, and I think the fixture definitely favors Spurs. Will the form come through? We'll have to see. But I think if you're Spurs, your players are going to be fully fit, pretty much because of having the extra day's rest. I would say slap the armband on Son personally over Kane, and then I would go Fernandes I think Fernandes is probably the best vice captain this week, because that he plays at the beginning of the week. In the event that something horrible happens, he's like, because if we would have seen, because the game starts he plays later on in the afternoon, but like Calvert-Lewin could also be a very good vice captain if you have him, because he plays the first fixture, and we would have probably seen something by now that would have been warranting him to, miss that fixture, whether it be injury or it being canceled, basically. So that's kind of what I'm looking at the moment. But yeah, Spurs versus Leeds is the fixture I'm worrying about. I'm going to go for my Leeds players. Hopefully they can do the business like they did again. And we'll see how it goes, personally. But getting back to OS's question. So this is obviously the players that I have. I was planning on free hitting in 18, bench boosting in 19. Now, with potential double game weeks further down the line, blank game weeks further down the line, there's going to be one blank game week where the free hit is going to be used on a lot of bad players, but you're not necessarily going to want to transfer those players in. So we're thinking like if we just look at players that are potentially going to be, playing in that gaming. So these are teams that are not going to make it to like 4th round, 5th round of the FA Cup. So you're thinking, who's the teams that are unlikely to get there? Crystal Palace, Sheffield United, probably Brighton, West Brom, Fulham, maybe Burnley, Newcastle. Teams like that are going to be in a blank game week somewhere down the line in like 26 onwards, where the free hit could be fantastic because you're not going to want any of those players in your team. But if you still have the wild card going into that, then you can transfer these players in slowly and then wild card them all out, but you won't be able to bench boost afterwards. If it's like a blank game week into a double game week, then you can't free hit them you can't. No, you would free hit, and if you wanted to wild card your team for the double, you would have to do it before the blank, basically. So that leaves a couple of game weeks for potential things to go awry, like players getting injured and stuff. If I have 7 players blanking during game week 18, should I free hit or wait for the next blank game week? So if you have 7 players, it depends on who the players are, right? Are you saying you have 7 players that are blanking or 7 players that are playing in the blank? Because, so for me currently, as it stands, 7 not playing. So you have 8, you can field 8 players in your lineup. And one of those, I assume, is a goalkeeper. Probably. It's probably Martinez or somebody like that, if I had to guess. So say if you have 8 fielded, so like, I think that's good enough, personally. Depending on who they are. I would need to know who the 8 players are. To see, like, okay, do you have a legitimate captaincy option? Can you actually play a formation like that would make some type of sense and get you some points? So for me, currently, going into the blank game week 18, so I have 1 free transfer this week and 1 free transfer next week, assuming I don't use the free hit, so I have 2 frees. I would have Pope, Taylor, Cancelo, Fernandez, and Chris Wood. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players. And that's assuming that Taylor's fit. So we're looking at 4, probably. Right? So, everyone's going to probably be getting De Bruyne in at some point. So let's just say, for argument's sake, next week, my Game Week 18 transfer, if I'm not using the free hit, is De Bruyne. Because it probably would be. McCarthy, Dallas, Salah, Robertson, Che Adams, Souček, Bamford. Those are the players that are not playing. So who are the players that are playing? That's probably the more important question. To figure out if the team's, like, solid enough. Because you can, like, you have 7 players, but, like, 4 of them are, like, heavy-hitting midfielders, then Burke, Mitchell, Nyland. Okay, well, Burke could technically play. Mitchell could technically play in Game Week 18. Because Mitchell would play versus Arsenal if he were to play. And same with Burke. Burke plays against Newcastle, technically. So those are technically 2 players you could have. But who are the 8 players that are... Fernandez, DCL, Son, Diaz would be playing. And then you'd have Burke and Mitchell. That makes 6. But aren't necessarily starters. So you must have... I think you have one more player that I think you're missing there. So Fernandez, Son, Salah, Souček. It must be a midfielder. Oh, and Lamptey's injured. But Lamptey might be back for this game, though. So you would have Lamptey, Fernandez, DCL, Son, Diaz, potentially Burke and Mitchell. Yeah, that's probably just too much, depending on like how your budget works. To like not just be like, you know what, I'm gonna free hit. But you could potentially manage it with hits as well. You could. But like so let's just getting back to my team really quick. A lot of people are going to be bringing in De Bruyne next week just because of if you're not on a free hit, he's probably going to be a player you bring in. Then for the on the free hit itself, you know, a lot of people are going to be bringing in Diaz, so you could do Diaz out for Justin, who Justin does have a double game week, but we could bring in Diaz, and then that moves us up to, if Charlie Taylor's fit again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players. So we're getting closer to where it's like, do we potentially save it and just say we have 3, 6, 7 players? Now, if Charlie Taylor's injured, then obviously he doesn't count. But we could also, you know, thinking potentially that Robertson might not keep a clean sheet potentially versus Man United, and only has a really good shot against Burnley, but again, Burnley could potentially get something. You know, I just did one transfer about Balbuena in for Taylor. Yeah, I mean, that's also a good option. The thing is with me is that in Game Week 19, I want my transfer to be Pope to Fabianski. That's another thing that I have to consider. So another thing that I was potentially considering is Robertson out. And bringing Rob Holding this week. Now, I don't have to do Diaz yet, so I'm just going to restore Justin. And then, so far, this is a 4-point hit. I would play Taylor just in case he did play. If he's injured, then whatever, we'll deal with it later on. Or I could just take him out and just be like, let me just bring in somebody else. Looking at keeping Fabianski value for City/United options for Game Week 19. Yeah, exactly. I need to get Fabianski. So for the time, so my initial thought is I can make one transfer this week for free. So if I wanted to, I can get rid of Charlie Taylor because he could be injured. I can bring in Rob Holding, who's a defender for the blank game week, who I could potentially gain some value on. And then I would play Holding because he plays West Brom. I would play James Justin, and I would play Robertson. I would have Pope in goal, obviously. I would play Mane, Salah, Fernandez, the 3 up front, and then Rafinha. And then the following week, or at some point, it'd be Mane to De Bruyne. This is if I'm not free hitting. That would be for free. So it says 4 points, but it'd be for free. Then that would give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players. I could get rid of Justin, bring in somebody like Diaz, who makes it 7 and is a double game week player. And then if I really wanted to add some you know, spice to the mix, as it were, I could get rid of Robertson and Rodrigo. So this would be for a total of 12 points. So it'd be overall. I could bring in Martial, who has a double game week. And then the other player I could bring in would be Peters or Lowton or somebody like that. I'll just say Peters. that would be over 2 game weeks. So one transfer would be extra would be free. So that's 12 points total. And then for that game week, I would have Pope, Peters, Cancelo, Diaz, Holding, De Bruyne, Fernandez, Martial, and Chris Wood. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players total. And then, if I wanted to bench boost, because my transfer for the following week was going to be Pope to Fabianski, the only other player that I would have to change out would be Holding for somebody. If I wanted to go that route. If I wanted to bench boost. But the players that I'd be bench boosting would be Johnston, Peters, probably whoever I bring in for Holding. Chris Wood, and then Souček, or probably Rafinha. Which it's a pretty solid bench boost, but it costs four extra points additional. So that'd be a total of 16 points taken across the whole across the whole like transition. Which is quite a lot of points. But it makes it so that we get to save the free hit next week. Like we get to save it and not use it in Game Week 18 and use it later. I meant to save on Fabianski for Balbuena, 0.7 less, looking at KDB in for 19, and may try to squeeze Ration. Also, Johnston, Justin, Dallas, Kufau, Salah, Bruno, Son, Rafinha, Wood, Kane, Bamford. Yeah, so you just captain one of Kane or Son, and then you vice captain probably Bruno, I would say. In the event that the Spurs game didn't go through, I would say. That's what I would do. But yeah, this is something that I'm potentially looking at the moment in terms of transfer wise. One thing that I could do is just kind of just wait and see, basically, and do nothing. As in, when I say do nothing, I mean use the transfer, but basically do nothing. Should I play Souček or Balbuena this week over any of the above? No. No, I wouldn't play Souček over Rafinha, and I wouldn't play Balbuena over Justin, Dallas, or Kufau, probably. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at. So the thing that I could do this week is Taylor out for Holding, because Taylor looks like he could be going back down in price tonight. And then play Holding, Justin, Robertson, and then see what next week brings. Serious stress, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what happens. I could take Taylor out and put in Rob Holding and just have him run him out for the week, and then see what happens. Because I don't think Taylor is going to be fit. It looked like a hamstring. If it's a grade 1 hamstring, then you're talking at least a couple of weeks or so. If it's anything worse than that, it's mega stress from there. And Holding is somebody that I can have on the free hit if need be. Plus, it makes it so that I haven't got to bring in De Bruyne. Would I like Diaz for the following week? Yeah, but we can deal with that next week. Would I like to have Martial for this week over Rodrigo? Probably, but do I necessarily need him? No, I think Liverpool can definitely do well versus Southampton. So I think that's probably the one transfer that I'm almost certainly going to make is going to be Rob Holding in, just because we know he's going to play. and then we can assess the transfers after the fact. Because our Game Week 19 transfer, no matter what, is Pope to Fabianski, which is for free. And then it's just a matter of, if we're on a free hit in 18, then, we're going to bring in De Bruyne for that week, obviously. And then we'd have to worry about other transfers then. But if we're not free hitting, then we can use hits and stuff to navigate things. But I think this gives us the option to do both. Because obviously taking a hit for De Bruyne specifically, just De Bruyne, so Mane to De Bruyne in 19 with Pope to Fabianski, and we captain De Bruyne in that week, it's probably fine. Don't have to necessarily bench boost in that week either. If we don't want to, we would still have 14 out of 15 bench boost players. And holding is against Newcastle, so they might keep a clean sheet there. So at the end of the day, it's not terrible, I don't think. But yeah, let me just check. Just gonna double check any price changes, any updates on it potentially. So it looks like Zaha, Saiss, Rashford, Barnes, Stones, and Harrison, and Holding's getting up there as well. So Diaz is close, but again, we can work around Diaz going up once. And then going down, you're looking at Grealish, Taylor, Mahrez, Ward-Prowse, Maddison, De Bruyne, Zuma, Burke, Bartley from West Brom, Branthwaite, Redmond, McCarthy from Crystal Palace, James Rodriguez, Bertrand, Lallana, Ziyech, and Tellez. And then the close people is Reece James from Chelsea, and then Charlie Taylor is, yeah, he's gonna go down for sure. So if there was somebody that I would just, that you could bring in, like normally what I would do, or if I was bringing like Maguire is a good double game week option as well now, because he has Burnley in the free hit week against Burnley, could potentially get something there. And then you have Fulham and Liverpool, could potentially get a set piece goal there. You're probably thinking he's okay as well. So if I wanted to as well, I could potentially get Maguire in for today if I wanted to as well, have him as another option, and just like bypass on Diaz, so that I have basically one United attacker, one United defender, one City defender, one City attacker eventually, right? So unfortunately I can't do Taylor straight to Maguire if I wanted to, but I could do Holding, and then I could do also Justin out for Diaz right now. The only risk with this is that Justin has a good fixture, obviously, and Diaz might not play, which is a big concern. But it would make it so that if there was a price drop on price increase on Diaz, we would get it basically, which he is close. But Justin playing versus Newcastle could potentially be a clean sheet. So, and then we'd have a situation where we're going to play Holding, we're going to play Robertson. Who do we pick out of Diaz and Cancelo? Probably Cancelo. So, again. But then we'll have cover for themselves. So if Cancelo didn't play and Diaz did, then we'll be okay there. Assuming no, like, bring Cancelo on at, like, 89th minute or something like that, or vice versa. But we'd also have Kufal's cover as well, who plays versus Everton, so we would be fine on that front if the game were to be called off. So we'd have Pope out, Diaz out, Cancelo out, and Chris Wood out. So we'd have the same number of players out. Johnston would come in for Pope, Kufal would come in for Diaz or Cancelo, and Souček would come in for Chris Wood. And then we just have to hope that everyone else plays. So this could also be possible, I think, as well. I think this is also something that is good because we can have two City defenders that are going to potentially go up in price or whatever they might do if City have a good game versus Chelsea. I think City should beat Chelsea. But again, if the game doesn't go through, then we still have the same number of players out. And we still have to rely on, Souček, Kufal, Johnston to come in. But we make it so that if Taylor doesn't play, and we get that extra 0.1 if we sell Taylor before he goes down in price tonight, most likely. And I think Holding is somebody that's good for not only this week, because he plays West Brom, who probably aren't going to score, or they should keep a clean sheet, but he's also good in the blank versus Crystal Palace, and he's good versus Newcastle, and he's good versus Southampton, potentially, you could say. But these three are quite good. And he's cheap. He's 4.4. So, and then the following week, in 18, we could so this would be a free transfer to De Bruyne. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players potentially. Then we could take a hit for another player. We could bring in Maguire as an example. As a defender that does play in the double game week. And then we'd have 7.8 for a forward. Not the greatest price point. And we'd have 7.5 for a midfielder. Not the greatest price point. If Maguire was slightly cheaper, we could have Grealish for the double game week. It's possible. Or if we know Reece James is fine, Reece James being 5'2" is somebody he's apparently out, but again 5'2" is quite cheap. Again, Grealish comes in for exact money. When is the deadline? The deadline is in 22 minutes from now. Zodiac. Would I start Souček or Antonio? I would start Souček because Antonio's probably, based on what Moyes said, is going to start on the bench again. So I would start Souček. Personally. That's what I would go with. Also, another thing, we get an extra 0.1 for selling Robertson, who after this game week, we probably don't want him. Yeah, the Burnley fixture's nice, but again, Spurs away, is he necessarily going to keep a clean sheet? Man United away, not necessarily a clean sheet in that, guaranteed. West Ham away, West Ham are quite tall, quite good. And then you could probably say, okay, maybe a clean sheet versus Brighton, probably. Leicester and City, probably not clean sheets there. And then you're probably looking, okay, here's a couple of fixtures that are good. So, with Liverpool's defense looking a bit ropey and not being able to score up front, they may try to put more oomph in their attack, which leaves them a bit more vulnerable at the back. So, another thing that we could do was get rid of Robertson. I'm not sure if I can do this. Yeah, that doesn't work. It would have to be... yeah, so it'd basically be we would go for a -8 going into the free hit week. We would bring in Martial. De Bruyne, and then a defender that's 4-5 or less. So you can go Lowton, you can go Peters, you can go somebody that plays in that game week. Even potentially a Crystal Palace defender, because there's some that are cheaper. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players. But again, overall, that's going to cost us 12 points, I think. So restore him, restore him, restore him. Now, if De Bruyne wasn't supposed to be going down in price for the last 2 or 3 days, he's supposed to go down in price at some point. I would have brought him in already, but I want to buy him if I have the option to do so and I can wait. I want to buy him in for cheaper, you know. And I'm only worried about the players that are going up because we want to not be able to be priced out of those moves. So yeah, and the thing is, Kufal is almost certainly going to play. He just had a full rest because I mean the dude plays basically every game. Like he came off 6 minutes to play versus United and didn't play, but he plays every other game. So there's no reason for him to just randomly be dropped now. And yeah, I don't think it's out of the realms of craziness to go to De Bruyne the following week for free. And then go Robertson to Maguire for another -4, so it's 8 points overall. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players playing in the double game week. That for 8 points seems perfectly reasonable for me, spread over 2 weeks. And then we would we could do Pope to Fabianski as planned. And then just you could choose to bench boost that if we want, or we could just play Diaz, Maguire, Diaz, Maguire, Cancelo, Kufau or Souček, De Bruyne, Salah, Fernandez, Rafinha, Bamford, Rodrigo. So we'd either play 4-4-2 with Rafinha in the midfield and Souček on the bench, or vice versa. Or we could just bench boost it and just say screw it and just have Holding there. We want to take an extra 4 points to bring in somebody who we can put a lot of value in, then sure. I mean, we can get literally pretty much any defender we want in the game. You know, there's many different options we can get. Obviously, we have Triple City, so we can't go that route. We could... we can't get Leeds players or West Ham players. So we're basically looking at Chelsea as one, Leicester as another. So we could bring Justin back in if we wanted to, but that's kind of a bit... Don't really want to do that. And then Liverpool we've already gone down from, but we don't really want them probably going forward. Maybe Southampton. Could be. But those are the options that we have. But I think what leaves us the most flexible is getting rid of Taylor, getting rid of Justin, bring in Diaz because we know we want Diaz long term anyway, and bringing in Rob Holding because he's somebody who plays in the double, or in the blank rather, and he has a pretty good single game week fixture for the double as well. So it's not the end of the world. Just gonna check on Twitter just to see if there's any other news that I may be missing. Apparently, the other person who is now take this with a pinch of salt. Apparently, the other person that is self-isolating is Fernandinho. So that would be Fernandinho, Fernandinho, Walker, Ederson, Jesus, and then that other guy who's a fringe player. So, not sure if that's true. But, yeah. Let's see if there's anything else here. This is you guys will get a laugh out of this one. So somebody put on Twitter, Gameweek 17. Who's your free transfer this week? Holding. You're holding the free transfer. Yes, I'm holding, but also holding. So you're not making any transfers. Yes, holding. I'm lost. And then you see the team with Rob Holding in it. That's quite funny, I thought. Is there any other news for potentially any news? Let me go on Fantasy Football Scouts Twitter. So does anyone say so? Ederson, it's not Cancelo. He was pictured in training. Oh, it was Doyle. That's his name. Announced on Instagram that he's isolating. So yeah. So it's Doyle, Ederson, Walker, Jesus, and one other, and Cancelo was in training. So I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to know what to do for Gameweek 19. Yeah, pretty much. With the new fixtures. It's a mess with the plans. Yeah, I mean, everything's all messed up. But yeah, I think I'm going to take the 4-point hit here. I think it makes sense. We're going to have DS long-term. Holding is for our blank anyway. We'll probably want him in the team just because he's a cheap defender. He plays Palace. So I think I'm going to go ahead with those. And then we have Holding in there. We would play Cancelo over Diaz. And I think that Bruno Fernandes captain is the choice for me this week. So I think that's what we'll do. Let's take a look quickly at the goals imminent table while I have it available. So the goals imminent table, we got Trezeguet, we got Watkins, De Bruyne, Martial, someone that we're potentially looking at. I captain Son. Yeah, I think that's the best versus Leeds specifically. Grealish's on there, Werner's on there, Vardy's on there, Benteke, McBurney, and Aubameyang a lot on there. Let's actually take a look at some of the captaincy options this week. Let me move this across so you guys can see a bit more of the table. So this is ordered. If it stops snapping across, that would be nice. There we go. This is ordered by expected goal involvement from Gameweek 13 to Gameweek 16. So obviously the players like City and Spurs will not be as high up. Did you hear Holding? Yep. Yep, he's cheap and potentially good. What site is this? This is the Fantasy Football Scout members area. So this is where you can create tables and that sort of stuff and see the stats of all different kinds of players. I believe it's like £20 for the whole year. And they use OptaStats to show you all the different stuff. So this is sorted by expected goal involvement. De Bruyne's top, then Sterling, and Bruno's up there by quite some margin, 3.21 over the last 4 game weeks. So he's expected to have scored or assisted 3.21 goal involvements. De Bruyne is still up there, having still missed a game. Sterling's up there, having still missed a game. So that's another option as well, is Sterling over De Bruyne. Could be something that we have to weigh up as well. But Son and Kane were always lower down on the table anyway. And with their missed game, they're going to be lower down on the table just naturally anyway. In terms of team stats, the whipping boys, or who concedes the most. This is going to be sorted by XG conceded. And at the top, we have Crystal Palace, Newcastle, and West Brom, and then Leeds, which is why I think that Leeds is potentially a good shout to be captained against, as it were. So Son or Kane. Aston Villa, they're pretty low down, which is why I'm not comfortable captaining Bruno. But Bruno's Bruno, and he plays for my team, which is Manchester United. So I think I'm going to back him. The other options for me is Salah, who they play Southampton, who are fairly low down on the table as well in terms of big chances conceded. Villa's doesn't concede very many big chances. Southampton don't concede very many big chances. So, and they have 2 good goalkeepers. So it is a bit tough. I think it's pretty clear captaincy-wise this week. Son over Kane, and then I would vice captain somebody who you know is probably going to play, like Bruno or Calvert-Lewin or somebody like that. But I would say Son. If you have Kane, then obviously captain Kane. But if you have Son and Kane, I think Son, because of what he could potentially do versus spacing out a bit. What he can do versus Leeds. Basically a team that is, conceded 60 United, who basically has... Now, Rashford didn't replicate in terms of FPL points. They scored 6 goals, and Rashford wasn't involved in any of them. But he was always a threat, and is somebody who could potentially have scored quite a lot versus them. So, but I wouldn't captain Son and vice captain Kane, because in the event that they're... would be potentially, if the game were to get cancelled, whether it be snow or COVID or something like that, then I would say just be cautious of that. That's a lesson learned, as it were. Son captain for Jamar. Yep, that probably makes a lot of sense. And it's just a matter of, can they keep that form, basically. Can they get the form that they had, and basically return it, as it were. So yeah, just going to refresh the team really quick here. So yeah, this is the lineup that we're going to put out. I'm going to go and screenshot it, so I at least have it for later to post over on YouTube and Twitter. There we go. Tuned in late, planning to not free hit in 18 now, are still undecided. Well, I made transfers to basically make it so that I can do either if I wanted to. So if I wanted to, take a 4.8 point hit to go into the free hit with 8-9 players, I can still do that. If I want a free hit, I can still do that. But I basically had exact money to get rid of Justin and Taylor, to bring in Holding, who has probably just as good, if not a better fixture than Justin, and Diaz, who's somebody who's potentially going to go up in price, and somebody that I want for the double game week, because the likelihood is Diaz probably gets his rest in the what's it called, FA Cup, and then plays both games. So Holding also has a pretty good single game week fixture versus Newcastle. Obviously plays in the blank. He's only 4-4, so he's somebody who we can just kind of sit on the bench. And then if we go into transfers, so let's say next week, I wanted to bring in, like I mentioned previously, bring in De Bruyne, and then get rid of. I would have Pope, Holding, Cancelo, Diaz, De Bruyne, Fernandez, and Chris Wood. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players I could have for only a -4 to play in the in that game week. If I want to take an extra hit potentially, I could get rid of. I could technically get rid of Bamford if I wanted to, and get in Wilson. That's a possibility because of the amount of value that we have on him. But doing that would probably be fairly detrimental, considering how highly owned he is, and we're going to want him back for that game week. But we bought him in at 6 million, he's now 6.6, so probably don't want to do that, but that is potentially an option. Something that wouldn't want to think about, but would be you could get rid of Robertson and just bring in Maguire for a 4-point hit, or a starting United defender. This could also be a Villa defender potentially, but again, Villa playing Spurs isn't great. Yeah, and I wouldn't be able to get Bamford because of the amount of value that I lost on him, unless I had it somewhere else. But then yeah, so it'd be Maguire for another 4-point, and then if we wanted to go even crazier, we could get rid of. Instead of Maguire, we could go for the likes of somebody who's a bit on the cheaper side. That is bench boostable, as it were. So like a Peters or somebody like that. And if we got rid of Rafinha, we'd have up to 8.6. But most likely it could be Rodrigo out, and we could bring in Martial, who has a double game week and has Sheffield United at home after that as well. That would be the option. And then you could bench boost, and then the free transfer in 19 would obviously be Pope to Fabianski. Then I would do nothing in 20, and then in 21 we would get rid of Martial and Rafinha. We could bring back in Jack Grealish, and then we could put in some cheap striker, most likely Watkins or Che Adams or Wilson or somebody of that nature would go back in. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. Well, Cavani only misses one fixture for the Premier League. He only misses game week 17. He misses game week 17. He misses the semi-final versus City, and he misses the FA Cup, which he probably might not have actually played in anyway, versus Watford. No, it's a 3-game FA ban. As in any FA competitions, he cannot play in, which benefits United a little bit because he only misses one Premier League game. But having him versus City in the semi-final would probably be nice. Yeah, he'd be back for Liverpool. He would only miss one Premier League game because it's an FA ban issued by the FA Board of FA. So any FA competitions, which is the Premier League, the FA Cup, and the Carabao Cup, would be suspended for those 3 games. So is he probably going to start some of those games? He probably would have started versus Watford, almost certainly. If I had to guess, in the FA Cup, maybe he starts versus City in the Carabao Cup. But he's back for Burnley as well. That's another thing. He could also play versus Burnley, which hasn't been newly added to Game Week 18. So that's another thing to pay attention to. So less than 30 seconds away. Make sure your team is locked and loaded. I'm just doing a little refresh on my team. So we got Pope in goal, Holding, Robertson, Cancelo, Rafinha, Mane, Salah, Fernandez, captain, Rodrigo, Bamford, Chris Wood, Johnston, Souček, Diaz, and Kufal. That's what we're going to go with. So we got, that should be the deadline, midday my time, which is 11 a.m. EST, which is 4 p.m. UK time. Kane captain for the Pens. Yep, that works too. I've gone with Bruno Fernandes just so I can root him on. Because he plays for United and that's who I support. Salah hasn't really shown too much from from what I can see in the last couple of game weeks. If they do well versus Southampton, then sure. But I think there's going to be a lot of people captaining Kane and Son, and that's basically what I have to compete with. Villa haven't been as strong defensively in terms of what what they've been basically, and look a bit ropier. But I'm gonna go with Fernandes. Cheers for stream. Can't wait to go joint top tonight, please. Yeah, that would be nice. Well, we wouldn't be joint top. We'd still be second because of goal difference. But yeah, could get Salah out next week for KDB. Yeah, for me, I can get out Mane instead if I wanted to. But yeah, let's move over to the big screen here after I confirm that the site is dead, which it should be by now, considering it's an extra minute over. But anyway, we'll swap over. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for joining in for the deadline stream. We will be back with more regular videos. Obviously, I'm going to put out an update today or tomorrow for the January update for the channel. But basically, it's going to outline that we're going to be doing more videos. So Sunday or Monday, I haven't decided yet, we'll be doing the if Chelsea and City play against each other, that'll be a tactics talk video. And then probably like Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, we'll do like teams to watch. We'll do players to watch. We'll do a free hit draft video, most certainly. And then we'll get back to the normal videos for like captaincy and that sort of stuff. So make sure to stay tuned in for that. I'm not going to post it because it could be quite random what I could potentially do, depending on if there's news about something or whatever. So I'm not going to post anything on Twitter. Just make sure you have the notification bell turned on over on YouTube and are subscribed over there so that you can get the videos when they become available. So thanks for watching, and until the next one, take care.